let's talk about the 2 biggest Facebook ads mistakes. Because I want to keep this brief because I want you guys to be able to digest it and take action on it. Yes, taking action, very important. All right, so thing number 1, there's no goal. Yeah, you heard me right. There's no goal. One of the biggest Facebook ads mistakes is you don't really know why you're running them. Someone told you that if you boosted a post, more people would see it. That's not really a goal. More people seeing a post is not a goal. More people finding your content and opting in and growing your email list. That's a goal. More people signing up for a webinar. That's a goal. And really, I don't like that more in there. 100 people signing up for your webinar. 200 people reading a blog post. Whatever it is. 50 people signing up for a program. Whatever that number is. But you don't have a goal. You're just running an ad because somebody told you to run an ad. It's really hard to measure the success of something if you don't know why you're doing it. And when you can't measure the success of something, you don't really know if it's working. And when you don't know if it's working, you tend to be wasting money. And I know for a lot of you, you're like me. You are solopreneurs or micro business owners. Maybe you have a small team. But for a lot of you guys are doing it on your own and you're bootstrapping in a lot of cases, and cash flow and monitoring your cash flow is critical. So you do not have the room to be throwing money at ads that don't have a purpose, that don't serve some bigger picture. And so we're going to talk about this more on the training today, but I want you to figure out what your 2 goals are, meaning your short-term goal or your click goal. So what do we want them to do? Do we want them to click? Do we want them to engage? Do we want them to share? Do we want them to like? What do we want them to do? And by like, I mean like your page. And then your conversion goal or your long-term goal. So we want them to opt into the email list or buy a program or book a session with you, some sort of revenue increasing goal. All right. So think about what those goals are. And those are the starting point for every Facebook ad campaign you run. If you don't know that thing, you don't do anything else. So Kathleen says, what if I want to reach a certain personality's audience, like Van Jones, for example? Is that a goal? Not really, because, well, yes, it is. You want to reach them. Great. But that's really more of your who than your why. So you want them to listen to the podcast. Awesome. Well, you want this audience to listen to that podcast. So your goal really is to get this audience to listen to your podcast. So that's your who and your why in one sentence. But knowing exactly why you want whatever group of people who you are trying to reach to do something is important. Again, whether that's listening to a podcast, and then ultimately I would say listening to the podcast is your short-term goal. What's your long-term goal for that? So what's the bigger picture goal? What does them listening to your podcast impact on a larger level? Maybe you run a podcast like mine, or your blog content or video insert content here, and that content feeds a program or a service or a product. Or maybe your podcast is your product and you want to increase your listenership because you want to be able to approach sponsors or get better deals with your, better arrangements with your current sponsors. So your short-term goal would be to listen to the podcast or read the blog post or watch the video. Again, insert whatever your content type is there. But from that, your larger goal is what? Some sort of revenue increasing. Again, it's your click goal and your conversion goal. So your short term is your click goal and your long term is your conversion goal. And we'll dig in deeper on this on the webinar. So if this is something that is sort of sparking something for you and is really going like, oh, hey, I need to pay attention to this, join us for the webinar at 11. And again, there's going to be a replay if you can't join us live. It's always cool to join us live. And so totally off track for a second, just because I'm really excited about this. We have this killer worksheet for everybody who joins the webinar, so that they can actually follow along with what's going on the webinar. So you can actually write down, and you can see it right here, goals, short-term, long-term. We're actually going to go over that in the training. I'm so stinking excited about this workbook. Sorry, just nerding out over here. So focus on that, all right? So let's jump into the second piece, because again, I want to keep this brief and digestible so you guys can leave me and take action. Number 2, there's no next step. And the reason, and there's other things. Again, we're going to talk about 5 pieces in the webinar today, but this one feeds directly to the goal. Thank you, Kathleen. She said she did get the workbook and it's awesome. And I love it. I'm so excited you like it. I really think it's going to be a big, helpful piece. And we're actually going to be, and Kathleen, you're backstage already, so you will want to know this. We're actually going to add a bunch more workbooks like this to our backstage trainings. So I'm really, really excited to do that. That's going to be happening over the next couple of months, along with rolling out more and more transcripts inside of backstage. So very cool stuff happening. Anyways, I want to talk about the second piece, and that is you don't know what the next step is, or there is no next step. So when you have your short-term goal, your click goal, like I want to get them to listen to a podcast episode. I want to get them to read a blog post. I want to get them to like the page. Okay, so what happens next? Where do they land? Where do they end up? So if we want them to listen to the podcast, in theory, they should land on a podcast episode, specific episode. So we can say, not just here's a bunch of episodes, enjoy, but here's something that's going to interest you, because that's going to affect our copy. It's going to affect our graphics. It's going to affect our targeting. But those next steps are critical. And that's where most people fall off. I would say probably 3 out of 5 people who email me or send me a message or get on the phone with me and tell me their Facebook ads don't work, their Facebook ads are not the problem. It's their landing page that's the problem. It's their follow-up that's the problem. So pay attention to what your next steps are. If you're ending up paying a lot of money for clicks and you're not seeing any conversions, especially if you're somebody who's getting a really great cost per click number, you're paying 15, 35, 50 cents a click, but you have 0 conversions, the problem is not the ad. The problem is the landing page. The problem is where they're ending up. The problem is after Facebook. It's not a Facebook ads problem. It's a funnel problem. And that's something people don't pay enough attention to. Your Facebook ads and your funnel, they go together. They work together. They're dependent on each other. Facebook ads cannot succeed if you don't have a clear understanding of what's happening on the funnel side after they leave Facebook and show up on your landing page. A great example of this is the page that you're going to click on if you hit that link, thestaceyharris.com/free training. When you click that link, you're going to land on a landing page. That landing page is where I've been driving a ton of ad traffic to over the last week. Guess what? That photo you see there, it's in the ads. Some of the verbiage and some of that copy, it's in some of the ads, because I want there to be a consistent experience. I've hooked you. I've got you in. I've got you saying, yes, I want to know more about that. Great. Now it's time for me to take you over the finish line. Now it's time for me to take you to the next step, which is hitting that button that says, yeah, I want to improve my Facebook ads. I want to sign up for this webinar. From there, what's critical is my follow-up, my email sequence. So there's a couple of emails you get after you sign up for the webinar. You get an email that says, awesome, you're on the list. The next email, you get a, hey, show up live. Here's the difference maker. Here's why I want you to be a part of this. Then they got another email yesterday that sent them the workbook. And then today, this morning, they got an email that said, hey, we're going live today. Are you ready? And 10 minutes before the webinar goes live, they'll get another email. But guess what? The emails don't stop there, because my larger goal, and again, if you've never watched me do a Facebook Live or a training or anything, podcast ever, I am very transparent with my business. This is exactly why I'm doing these things. I'm showing you guys what I'm doing. The goal is not to get you on the webinar. The goal is to get you backstage. The goal is to get you inside the membership where you can watch the trainings that walk you through how to run these Facebook ads, how to create them inside of Facebook, how to use the Power Editor and things like that. And so there's more emails after that webinar sequence because I want to take you the rest of the way to backstage. But guess what? It doesn't end then. Then I want to keep you backstage. So that's the even larger goal. And so then we have an onboarding sequence at backstage that's built to cultivate you as a part of the community. That's built to direct you to where you need to go and get the help you need and the resources you were looking for when you joined. And so you notice this follow-up part, this next step doesn't end at the landing page. It goes all the way through, taking us straight from our click goal to our conversion goal, taking straight from our short-term goal to our long-term goal. And that is something that people forget all of the time. And that has to be figured out before you ever open Facebook to run an ad. Honestly, before you figure out what pages you want to target, whether you figure out what graphics you want to use, you have to know what the big picture is on this. Hi, Anoma. You have to know what the bird's eye view of this whole process is. So take a step back and look at what is your goal, short-term and long-term, and then what are the next steps? What does that funnel look like? What does that roadmap look like? What does that process look like? What is that journey for your client? If you have a problem with the idea of sales funnels, if you're bumping up against that verbiage, drop me a message in the comments and I will link to an episode that I did talking about sales funnels, because sales funnels are just a way for you to provide a solution for your audience. They're just a way for you to take them from problem to solution, because that's what we want. That's what we need to do to serve our community, is to take them from problem to solution. Inoma says, I fail at ads. Now it intimidates me. Don't let it intimidate you. In fact, I would encourage you to join us on the training today and then follow that up with, because I know you're a Backstage member already, follow that up with the implementation trainings inside of the community, because we're going to walk through the steps I go through every campaign I run for myself, for clients. Every single campaign, we go through the steps in this workbook that all the webinar attendees are getting. What we just talked about is 2 of those steps. There's 3 more. But when you have sort of a checklist process, when you have something that you can go very easily from start to finish, a roadmap you can follow, it gets a lot less intimidating, because you're going to make decisions that build off past decisions, and all of a sudden there you go, you're ready to build your ad. Okay? So join us on the training, take these next steps, and take action. And that's going to be one of the primary messages of this webinar is I want you guys to do something with this. I want you guys to run some ads. The training today, the free webinar today is at 11 a.m. I think I mentioned it in the Tuesday email. This isn't an exclusive Backstage email or training. So special Backstage email didn't go out. But there's a link in the copy area of this ad that links you to the training. Because again, this is a free training. This isn't a Backstage exclusive, so anybody can join us. But you'll benefit even if you are already a Backstage member, because basically at the end when I tell everybody the next steps, you'll be able to just go jump right into Backstage and check them out. All right. All right. So if you guys have more questions, leave them in the comments. Better yet, head over to thestaceyharris.com/free training. Join us at 11 a.m. Pacific time for that free training, because we're going to dive deeper in these 2 things, and we're going to cover the other 3 steps I go through, which do include you figuring out your audience, your copy, your graphics, things like that. Are going to talk about some of the more nuts and bolts stuff, but here's the deal, guys. That stuff cannot happen until you know your goal, until you know what's happening. All right? All right. I will see you guys at 11. And I will see some of you already backstage. So if you have questions, you can ask them there. All right? All right. I'll see you guys soon. Have a great rest of your day. And of course, I'll see you next week. Bye.